I think we can get started. So, hi everyone. Welcome to the Landing a Job in Climate, a Playbook to Go Beyond Resumes and Cover Letters workshop, which is presented by Work on Climate in partnership with Climate Drift. My name is Valerie Vidala. I'm a volunteer at Work on Climate, and I'm joined with another volunteer, Nicolette Berkey, who is helping me with the technical support for this event. Now, before we get started, I just wanted to give you a quick review of today's format. Marco will present for approximately 45 minutes, followed by a Q&A session where you can ask questions in the chat. And then we will enter breakout rooms to discuss your experience so far with job search and what you've learned from this workshop and how you can apply it. For those who are new, Work on Climate is a nonprofit organization with a mission to make climate work mainstream. With a community of 29,000 plus members, we regularly organize events like this one to help professionals transition into climate-related careers. To join our community, if you're not yet a member, please visit our website at workonclimate.org for more details. Our partner organization in this event is Climate Drift, and Climate Drift shares our mission. We are honored to have its co-founder, Marco Morawec, as a guest speaker. Marco is a successful entrepreneur with experience in building and expanding educational companies. He has guided numerous professionals in their career transitions. So we are thrilled to have you with us, Marco. The stage is yours.
Oh, thank you. What an intro. Thank you so much. And for everyone, it's 6:07 a.m. for me here. I'm in New Zealand right now. So that was my idea to run this early. So people who are maybe in Europe, they don't have to stay up late, especially Nicolette. She's, I think, also in Europe. So I think I'm awake. I think we should jump in and let's go. Okay, so there's one more slide that
was the Work on Climate. I breezed through it. So
oh my God, you're ahead of me. I love it. Okay, let's dive in.
All you.
Before I say anything, I usually like to start these type of talks with a promise. I want to start this talk with a promise. And my promise to you at the end of the talk is two things. I want you to have a different perspective on how to land a job in climate. And hopefully you will also meet some like-minded people in our breakout rooms at the very end that we have set up for you. And the second one is I want you to have very actionable steps on what you can do to showcase your transferable skills and do things a little different than resumes and cover letter and going through that. So that's my promise to you. Give you a different perspective and some actionable steps you can do. All right, first of all, Valerie already did a really good job telling me telling all of you about me, but who is this Marco? I think there's three numbers you should remember about me. Pretty straightforward, 18, 1,000, and 2. Let's start with 18. I came to the US many moons ago. And why number 18? I came here waiting for my work permit, and I learned that ATM machines in the US do not dispense anything smaller than a $20 bill. And I only had 18 bucks in my account. And that's how I started when I came to the US. I was like, okay, great. I guess I'm really broke. The bank doesn't even want to give me my last $18. And then I went from there. And 3 days later, my work permit arrived in the mail. And I was like, yeah, now I better find a job and get working. 1,000. What's that number? You know, I used education for myself to improve myself, to work on myself, to get to the next level. And I, throughout that, used education to help other people. And I taught hundreds of people early on. This is like 15 years ago, how to code and build web applications when this was really cool. And I did that at, Harvard, Carnegie Mellon, and Brown University, like a whole bunch of really cool universities. I went and I got to teach people that. And then I was the person who started one of the very first online coding boot camps. And I had thousands and thousands of people run through that and transition careers in that. So that's like that second number is 1,000. It's like I helped way over 1,000. It's like 1,000 is just a nice round number of people transition careers and go, move upward on the economic and impact ladder that they set for themselves. And then the last number 2, this is why I wake up at 6 in the morning and do these things, is like I have 2 little kids. They're 3 and 5 years old. And I know I have maybe 3-4 years left before I get that question asked. It's like, Daddy, what do you do to keep Mother Earth safe? And I better have a good answer for them. And that's why I'm doing this. This is my North Star, is like, I want to get as much people into climate, into the climate workforce, as possible. So I have a good answer to them and I can say like, hey, everything I could every single day. That's my goal. That's why I'm waking up. Okay, let's dive in. Over the last 12 months, 16 months, I talked to, I had one-on-one sessions with close to 200 people, held workshops for close to 1,000 people, heard from, I think, 8,000 people on LinkedIn, all about what their problem is breaking into climate. And I want to know from all of you, what do you think is the number one problem people have to transition from wherever they are in their careers right now into climate? Put it in the chat. I want to see. And Valerie, you can read out if you see some themes coming up.
Will do. Ageism, amen. I agree. Not having relevant experience or enough of it, absolutely. Oh, now it's coming fast. Hold on. We got some people really taking apart here. Communicating your transferable skills. No experience again. Getting started entry level after graduating.
Mm-hmm.
Tech workers, there's been a lot of layoffs and so there are a lot of people looking, so there's a lot more competition.
Yeah, I agree with all this. Here's what I hear. I'll dive in. Thank you so much. Super helpful. Here's what I hear. No direct experience. And a few people said that, right?
Yep.
And what does that really mean? If I dig into this and I ask why a few times and try to get to the bottom, it's like, hey, I cannot communicate the value I can bring to a given climate company. I just don't know how. And I'll give you an example of two different ways I oftentimes see this. So let's say, and I use a tech example that maybe most of us know. I don't know, maybe I'm dating myself here, but let's think that company that you want to work for is Instagram and it's early 2011. So if you come on a networking call with the founders, Kevin and Mike, Mike Krieger, Kevin Systrom, and you say, hey, I love how the internet just changes everything. I want to use it for a place where people can connect. And I'm so passionate about connecting people, especially with pictures. Do you have any jobs for me where I can help connect people more with pictures? You would have not gotten a job. It's just like, sorry, we're just hopping. We're like doing something amazing. I need somebody who is thinking a little further, right? What I just said there as example, that wasn't showing value. It's the opposite side of the coin, how you can actually do that. So you can go and like, okay, what matters here? And then you were like, okay, can we talk about, this is what you do in Network Club. Can we talk about the difference in pixel density and camera quality of the just released iPhone 4? And how that will actually drive growth for your application, because now people for the first time can actually show these pictures on a high enough quality so we can do something with the pictures and manipulate them and they don't look blurry. And now the other thing that's going to happen is these are iPhone users. There's this whole huge market that's untapped of Android app users. And we shouldn't build an Android app. We should hold that back and let this become a powder keg of FOMO, fear of missing out, of that side of the market until this is big enough. And then we release it. And then user growth will go really crazy, really fast within a few weeks. And then we get the attention from everyone else playing in that space because they will be scared that we're growing so fast. And that's literally what Instagram did. And they released the Android app. And I think 3 months later, Facebook was like, $1 billion. We need this company. They're too scary. This is how you should talk. Hey, pixel density. Hey, the FOMO Android app, where you really understand what's going on in the market. And that for climate, it's very much similar. Like, how can I show my experience and apply that? And that's what I want to go through today. There's too many people go into these conversations and they say the equivalent of, I want to work in the internet. I want to work in climate. It's not really working. And it's also not working when you submit cover letters and resumes and all that stuff to all these job boards and look at them and do the spray and pray. It's not really working either. And I hear that all the time too. So what should you do instead? Let me tell you a story. Here's one of our members, Ms. Barrett. He came to us a few months ago telling us that he needs help switching into climate. He applied to the Climate Drift Career Accelerator. We accepted him. His background is solid. He worked in tech in the product space for a while. His large bank was at a huge financial institution. And he also signed up for every type of course, every learning experience he could, but it wasn't really working. Nothing really was connected to actually landing that job at the end. It's a lot of education, but it didn't really connect to, hey, here's actually where you go. And so, but what did work is the playbook that I'm going to share with you today that we use at Climate Drift. And it was focus and depth, focus on a niche in a subsector in climate, and then going deep into that and establishing yourself as somebody who actually understands what's going on in there and what matters. And so what did Barrett do? He's a hobby gardener. Just give the story away and we go into that more. And he loves growing things. So he wrote a complete market analysis of a really newish subsector, which is enteric methane. This is cow burps and the impact on them. Published it on Climate Drift, and people reached out to him. It's like, wow, there's nothing really like that out there. And somebody finally synthesized everything that's going on there and where this can go. And then I got a job like 3 weeks after the program was over, with a company focusing specifically on that and building that ecosystem out. So this is why I'm telling you this, is because we're doing what Barrett did. We're reverse engineering that story so all of you can do something very similar and have the tools to know how to do that. So first thing, we do some fundamentals here. If you're in one sector right now, in tech, in finance, in legal, wherever you are, and you want to switch into climate, to me, this is a career transition. This isn't a job search. A job search to me is like, hey, I'm in tech. I work in marketing for one software as a service company, and I'm switching to another one. That to me is a job search. Your skills probably map one-to-one. Tools are the same. Language is the same. If you switch from tech, from a software as a service tech company in marketing to marketing in climate, in, let's say, the residential solar industry, or maybe you go heat pumps or whatever it is, it's completely different. It's like this jump. And so you always need to think career transition, not job search. And what worked in a job search doesn't necessarily work in a career transition. So pretty big difference. And so if you think career transition, we need to tackle 4 problems. And these are kind of like what I hear over and over again. This is synthesized from like surveys we did, thousands of people talking to us, and there's 4 of them. No climate network, drowning in solutions, no climate experience, and no job transition experience. Never done that. You always stayed in your same industry. No climate network, it's pretty straightforward. I don't know a lot of people who are there. We here and work on climate. We can do that already, which is great. There is some network there, but maybe I don't know the professionals within a specific niche that I want to get in. Drowning in solutions is the same. We have if you go to Climate Drift and search solutions map, we have a map with 220, maybe we always update it, more solutions that you can actually see all the subsectors of the climate economy broken down. And I share a few later. We can share the link maybe at the end too. And that's all about, where am I? Where do I want to go? Where could my skills actually matter? And then, job transition experience is pretty much like this. Hey, I usually just talk to some people that already knew me and, submitted my resume and cover letter. That ain't working in a job transition either. So there's a bit of a different things, and no climate experience we just talked about. So if I have one piece of advice how to overcome those challenges, it's this: leading of the value. Now you go like, what the heck does that mean, Marco? Think back to what Barrett did when he wrote that deep dive market analysis about the enteric methane space. Think back to the Instagram example. I think back of many Climate Drift members who are doing this right now. They're sharing a solution or a way of thinking about a problem that keeps people in a very specific niche, in a very specific climate niche, up at night. Like, Matt, this is the biggest thing that prevents my company from moving the next milestone. That's where they're tacking in and being like, what can I bring to this problem here? And that's what I mean by leading with value. And as a founder who, scaled multiple companies and hired, I don't know, dozens of people himself, or hundreds of people, I can tell you the person you want to hire is the person who comes through the door, knows your problem, and tells you, here's how I would do that. Even if that person is only half right, because they don't know everything, because you know it more because you're in there. This is where I was like, wow, this is the type of thinking we need to get us to the next problem. That was true 15 years ago in tech, all the way to today. That is true in pretty much any industry that you want to break into, and especially in climate. Those are the people that get hired first. So be one of them, right? But now how? Finally, after what is that, 8 slides? Like, come on, Margaret, tell me how we get there. So you need to do a bit of homework first, right? You can't just be like, oh yeah, I'm totally leading with value. So here's what we talked about earlier. Get orientated, right? We have the little map, a climate drift that starts like, hey, in the center, and then we go out and it looks something like that. Crazy, 220 different subsectors. Download that map, don't pay anything for it, just get it. And look, what would you basically interested? And then you get like into all these different areas, and you have at least the keywords to search for the right thing. And you know, like, oh man, there's so much more than I just thought, right? Oh, solar, I thought, I have solar panels on my roof. Really cool. But you probably haven't thought about everything there is in terms of just the software for yield optimization, all that stuff that goes in there. We have that in this map, so you can look at that. And then what does that help you with? You can find your climate niche, right? At least you have orientation, be like, here's a few things I think I might be interested in. And just in case this isn't obvious yet, it's pretty much impossible to be an expert at everything in climate. So, if you have imposter syndrome, I have that many days. I was like, I just don't know how this works yet. That's totally normal. Look at the map. No way in hell anyone can know everything about 220 plus subsectors. So you should never feel like discouraged by that. But it also means that you just find a niche and spend some time looking into what's going on there, and see if that's something you can get excited about, the challenges in that niche, the companies that work in there, what problem they're actually trying to solve. So when I try to find a niche, what I usually look at and ask myself is a few things. So I usually start with, hey, who's the customer that they're serving? Can I be happy working together with this person that they ultimately selling to, they ultimately want to bring a service to? And so I'll give you an example. If you're providing carbon-free cement, which Sublime Systems company that also we had speakers from, the leaders come and speak at our events. If you think carbon-free cement is something, well, man, this sounds so cool. The whole built environment and the whole industry that's like has such a huge impact on climate, and it's a huge economy, huge vertical of the climate economy. I want to go in there, and you think about, who do they sell to? These are construction companies. They deal with governments and RFPs. Is that something you love doing? Because that's who you ultimately will work together with. So that's always what I ask myself. Do I like working for this type of customer? The next thing is like, what stage is the company at? A lot of people tell me, hey, I'm so excited about X. And I was like, well, that subsector, everyone in there, or 95% of people, still wear lab coats and safety goggles. Are you usually wearing a lab coat and safety goggles? Because it's going to be very hard for you to break in if everyone in there is still in the lab, right? You might be too early in terms of stage. So think about like where on the curve this company is in terms of like, readiness to actually start scaling, where you can bring in your skills. So let's say you're in business development, sales, marketing, anything of the growth roles. It's probably too early when there's 95% scientists at that company and they haven't really done that. So then that's another thing I look at. And the last thing is like, where are they on the hype curve, right? I want to know how mature what they're doing actually is. Is this just getting a ton of press because it's cool? Like fusion reactors. And I was like, oh my God, if we solve this would be a step equation moving forward, right? But again, everyone's still in lab coat maybe. Or is it something where it's like, man, this is actually at a place where this is scaling rapidly. And I can actually come in here now and this company will move forward. So for example, Sublime System, carbon-free cement, was probably a year ago, was still like, they're in there very early, like everyone wears a lab coat. And now they're like scaling up and they're building their first factory and they're selling their stuff. So now they're at this curve that goes up. Again, if you need hype curves for industries, go to Climate Drift and you can find a whole bunch there. Okay, moving on. It's like, how what should I do next, right? Like after I have my niche, I want to go and say like, hey, you need to find yourself a climate problem, identify current problems that you see within a niche, or tackle a problem within that niche, right? So you can showcase your skills and stop talking about them, right? It's not like, hey, I'm a dynamic leader and I had a team of this and done all this great stuff. Okay, great. There's like, no, here's what your problem is. Here's how I think you could solve that, right? Think back to the Instagram example. It's like, okay, pixel density. Think about this super nerdy stuff. Where it's like, wow, that's what they actually care about right now, in terms of like user growth, because that was their next milestone that they wanted to do. You need to think about what is that for a climate tech company. And I go through that now and share that playbook of how I would do that with an example here. I think you have two options there to do that. There's an easy route. That works especially well if you're maybe early in your career and you don't have like, let's say 5 years work experience. You can go to easy route. And then just keep it simple, start small. And there's also the more advanced route where you dive even more in. And that oftentimes works better if you have a bit of experience. Doesn't mean you can't do one or the other, but I'm just like, that's my general understanding from my experience, what worked best. But never let me discourage you from going all in. So let's dive in. It's very easy, the easy route, basically. You can do a few things. You can go an industry, a company breakdown, right? We had everything from like, hey, here's actually how mushrooms come into the alternative protein, alternative meat industry, what role they play. There's companies in that space that do that right now. So writing about that is like, oh, okay, this person understands it. They see some of the challenges. They understand the companies. There's like industrial heat, Rondo, which is a company that is very successful right now, scaling that up again on the hype curve. They're like actually scaling industrial heat right now, which is a huge issue. They're a partner company with Climate Drift. So wrote a market analysis on that. Really valuable. They've never probably done that themselves, so they never really published that. Really good way of getting in touch with them. The next one is you can just do concrete improvements. You could, especially if you're in marketing and communications, you can take, and these are real examples of people done that, right? You can take a website and be like, hey, your copy is really bad. Make those few changes, looks a lot better. Write about it. Be like, hey, before, after. Really easy. If you have the experience, you can do that and be like, you can see what's simple to do. And then you can also collect all the different opinions, synthesize them, put them together, different perspectives on like, hey, this entire industry, here's where I think it will go. Here's all the things that happened. Now, we can go and do the hard route. If there's any questions on that, put that in the chat right now, and Valerie will collect them. Yeah, raise their hands, and we're going to do them in the Q&A. Here's the advanced route. Few steps you need to do. Choose your niche. You already done that. Looked at the map. Okay, I kind of know where I want to go. Let's dive in. To dive deeper, and you need to listen and read and then distill. So when I think about that, this works really well if you go for like mid-level, senior level role. Oftentimes it's kind of required. We typically spend about a full week or two with each of our members in Climate Drift to nail that, to really figure out like, is this where you want to go? Here's what matters. Here's things you need to do. But I'm going to give you the rundown of how I would do that if I want to go through that and actually find something. So I have like, here's a goal. Here's a place where I want to go. First things first, we already talked about that, is choose a niche. I would look at that. I say, hey, I just installed solar panels on my house. This isn't on my house. My house doesn't look that cool. But I'm curious about residential solar. So I'm going to go with that. Let's see what I can do. All right. Need to dive deeper. Need to do my homework. What should I read? Which podcast should I listen to? I've never done any of that. You can you can Google around, can make it easy for you. You can also go to Climate Drift. We have 10 essential books and climate solutions. You can just Google that, climate book solutions, get the top 10 list, pick 2 of those, start reading. In parallel, if you want top 10 climate podcasts, these are the ones we think are best. You can also do that. Find the most recent interview post that any of these podcasts has, and then look for it, which one is of the residential solar that you like. So me going with this example, I would have read 1 or 2 books. I probably would have read Electrify Everything by Saul Griffith. I love that book. And I would have probably dug through The Catalyst because I like that podcast and I love that. So if I've done that, I would have come across this episode that was fairly recent of could VPP save rooftop solar? Hey, residential solar, rooftop solar. That's, I think, exactly what I care about. And so I would have listened to that. I listened to it once, then I would have opened the transcript. And I really want to listen in and search for what are these experts in the field telling me that is the challenge right now. If I listen to it, that's one way. I like to actually read it in the transcript. So if I pull out the transcript, which I did here, I come across this one specific section where they say rooftop solar applications in California have plunged 82% in the second half of 2023. So any person doing rooftop solar in the US or California specifically, this sounds like 82% going down. This probably sounds like a keep me up at night situation. This is a challenge for my company. So that's crazy to 82. So what's going on there? And then they actually give some potential solutions where they say, hey, we should tell homeowners they should also buy a battery and combine that with a virtual power plant so to make this really efficient. And then it actually saves money in the long run, even more so if you just have solar panels. And they talk about that. And then I think immediately, like every homeowner, if I talk to my neighbor and say, hey, you need to get solar, but by the way, you need to get a battery that's 10,000 extra, and you need to put a virtual power plant in place too, they're going to be like, virtual power, what? I lost you at battery. That doesn't work for me anymore. So then you see like, okay, what has anyone thought about this more? And you do some digging, you distilling, and come across this like, oh my God, there's actually a company that does battery home bundling solutions. It's called Base Power Company. And you're like, okay, cool. What do they do? They tackled this problem already. So that's interesting. And then you look deeper and you're like, oh my God, notboring.co, great newsletter by Packy, actually distilled this already down and came up with, what is it, like I think it's 20-page breakdown of this problem that was just discussed of the base company. So then I know, okay, I know the issue with residential solar right now. I know people care about that. I know there's a company, Base Power Company, that addresses this already. How do they do it? And now I'm wondering, well, there's one single company that does that. Are there others? And you come in that breakdown and like, no, this is all fairly new. This all just happened in the last few months. And so then you're like, okay, there must be other companies that struggle with this. So then I ask myself, how's Tesla doing this? Oh, now I understand why they email me once a week. They're like, do you want to buy a battery? And have all these weird marketing copy that doesn't make sense to me. I was like, reading, it's like, what do you want to sell me? And then how is Sunrun doing this? And so now I have an angle where I'm like, okay, if I want to get into that space, I should probably think about what has Base Power done? How would it apply to other companies? And now if I go into networking calls, I can actually bring value, right? I can spell out the problem and trying to bring my solution forward. So depending on your skills, you can find your angle, right? If you're in marketing and comms, a few examples that I have here. How can you create the right messaging for solar panel owners to buy the batteries and understand what virtual power plants do and how they can actually save them money? Same goes if you're in financing and sales. What is the financing mechanism that makes it more affordable to customers? Because you ask them to spend more money up front, but the ROI will be a lot quicker, especially if you add a virtual power plant. And you don't need to know what a virtual power plant is right now. It's just an example. The last thing is if you're in product, what's the onboarding flow? Can you do anything for people like, oh, okay, now I actually understand that, why I want to buy that. And it makes so much sense. Financially, it makes sense from what I want to achieve with my personal goals and how this would all work together. This is my way of how I would go through and be like, okay, here's how I find one niche and one specific problem that I could now tag myself onto and learn more. Now I'm very, very laser focused on one industry and I'm very laser focused on that problem. If I talk to people who are in that, they will very likely have that problem too. Hopefully I want to validate that, but once I validate that, then I have actually a thesis. Then I have something to say, something to contribute. So my networking calls are not, hey, I want to work in climate. I'm so passionate about that. And I, do all these things. I volunteer here, which is all great, but it's like, how does this solve the company problems? Like, I understand your problem. Here's how I think I could solve that. I'm in marketing. I've worked through your communications. Hey, I'm in financing. Here's how I propose a deal to the end customer. Hey, I'm in product. I mocked you up a flow of what I could do. Okay, this is a ton. Exhale. I take a sip of water. I went over a lot, glossed over a lot of details, but I just want to give you the playbook, how I think about that, how I do things differently. So you don't do the cover letter and just write a few things in there, but you actually go in and be like, hey, here's the problem. Let's look at a few examples how people have done that in the past and get a bit more concrete. Okay, so again, here's Barrett. He wrote a piece on climate drift. We met him earlier, and about etheric methane. Published that, and that helped the people. And then he shared it with people. And we're like, hey, read this. This is my thesis on the current state of that very specific, very small, yet to be developed ecosystem. What's your take on that? Do I have it right? And he used that for networking. And then, I think 3 weeks after the program was over, he said like, hey, I'm at Spark Climate Solutions right now. And they're building that ecosystem, and he's working there right now. He's super stoked. Here's another example. Peter was coming to us, and he was really into electricity. So he wrote this piece on microgrids, how we can decarbonize the grid. And he went into a deep dive there and spelled out all the problems. And now he's, I think, chief of staff and the product side on Rewiring America. So really nice company. He joined them, and then yeah, exactly. I have that here. So he just announced that a while back. There's also people mid-career. Here's Tessa. She used it actually different. Our program a little different. She was already at an early stage climate tech company, doing like product, a bit of well, it's early, many hats, chief of staff, product, a little bit of go-to-market stuff. And she came in and be like, I want to stay at that company. And she just told us this. It's like, hey, this is the impact that this gave me. I got all these conversations with folks in climate. These led to these type of deals for my company. I attended all these sessions, and I wrote several thought leadership pieces here, and it really helped me personally, and also helped my company, who actually funded her tuition. It was really great to see. There's other people really early. This is Clint. He was one of the first persons we kind of coached before we even had the program, and he wrote a guide to virtual power plants. So if you're curious about what that is, you can literally go and search on climate drift, virtual power plants, or just Clint, and you see his space. And he dove into that and was writing about that and actually figuring out the problems that exist right now in the grid, in the energy space. And then he announced a bit later, but he works for the California Public Utilities Commission, literally working on how do we set elastic energy pricing all across California right now, because right now we have like just 1 or 2 price tiers, and this should be by the hour, by the minute. And so that's what he's working on. Super interesting project he's working on. More people. This is Vianney, who's a classic, 10 years of experience at Google, I think it's Google, Spotify, so these tech companies in product management. And he wrote about IKEA, really liked that, and the circular economy, and that got him a lot of talk with them, but he didn't want to move to Sweden. So ultimately he joined Cornell's Tech Urban, what's it called? Urban Tech Hub. And I think he's working on Local Law 97, which is, environmental compliance law, and how landlords need to comply with that to have all their rental properties actually being environmentally friendly, and all the stuff that goes in there. So he's working on that right now. So tons more. I could go on. Sitting down some really stuff. Kyla joined my Green Lab. Jonathan joined us from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, or Gates Foundation is called now, and he works now at Earth Finance. Tons of more stories. I can't mention them all. I couldn't even put them all there. Artem, I just joined Kelvin, really cool company on the biz dev side. So lots of people switching over. What do they all have in common? They picked a niche, they figured out a problem that there is in that specific niche, and they figured out how they can use their skills to come up with some solutions and move that forward. And that got them, opened all the doors in terms of networking and got them at the right place where it's like, hey, I'm leading a value here. This is how I would do this. And that's a completely different way than somebody reading your cover letter. You're coming through the door, it's like, hey, did you read my piece over here? I published that. Did you see what I said on LinkedIn about this? Microgrids, about virtual power plants, about sustainable aviation fuels, and the solutions framework around it, like how I see it. And that's what actually like helped them move forward. So, and then now you want to know, okay, Mark, you've done all this work. Like, what do people actually tell you after? Like, if they go through, I think here's my absolute favorite quote. And sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but this is literally what came in. And last night when I put these slides together, I copy and pasted a little bit, and I looked in I have a folder where I put all stuff that people sent me. That's nice. And I think this is still my favorite quote that I could find. I get in trouble if I never get invited back for having a quote like this on the screen, then I know I won't use it next time. People tell us more. These are just like, I just screenshotted them out, and man, I posted on LinkedIn, and these are all of our members that we work with one-on-one that go through our program, and some write us really long love letters, and it boils down like to, I do it again. If you want to have me, I come to any session you run. Whatever I can do to help. This is Jonathan again, who, just send us a bit of like, hey, here's what really worked for me, also on LinkedIn. And yeah, he's working at Earth Finance right now. So really cool person. So I want to come back to my very first slide and my promise. What did I promise you? Different perspective and actual steps. So if you paid attention, then my promise was, hey, I want you to understand what the difference is between a job search and a career transition. I want you to see, like, here's a different way of doing this, a different way of breaking into climate. And I want you to have actionable steps that you can do. It's like, how do I find a niche? How do I think about a problem? How would Marco have gone through finding a challenge problem? And then what would he have done next? And that hopefully, by listening to me for the last like 40 plus minutes that I talk, this became clear of, oh, there's a different way of doing this. Don't have to do the resume and the cover letters all the time. There's different things I can do, and I can use a different strategy and do some, maybe half of my time spent on actually working through some of these challenges and coming up with solutions. And you don't have to do it all by yourself. There's great communities out there. Work on Climate is one. We're building one at Climate Drift focused on this. So that was my talk. I hope it worked. I hope it will work for you. I hope it was helpful to you. Now, Valerie asked, hey, put a few slides on there about your program that you're running. And I said, sure, okay. I'd like to end right there, my promise, hoping that was helpful. If you care about, if you want to join, if you want to run this playbook inside of a community and with my help and several other people, we're starting October 10th. I love what the team at Work of Climate is doing. So we usually don't do this type of discounts, but for all of you, yes, if you want, there's a link to the application. You can scan the QR code right now and mention Work on Climate in the application that you want this workshop. We can give you a discount. We also have scholarships. We do them on a need basis and figure that all out, but that's pretty straightforward process on our end. Here's usually what we do through an 8-week program, the subsectors we cover, how we pick them based on impact and funding flowing into those. And then we have every week we have daily sessions where we either dive into, have speakers come in from the investor, from the leaders in the climate subsector, talking about their challenges and what keeps them up at night, which helps a ton of identifying this when somebody actually tells you those. And then we have career sessions and challenge sessions where we dive into these problems and we're thinking about, how do I position myself to actually can lead with value? And this is like short form, long form content. And then we do all the solutions overview as well. So using the map that we have and basically being like, here's all the solutions and here's the companies within it. Here's the funding flowing in. So you don't have to do all that research yourself. What if I look back and be like, is this working? Our net promoter score went from 60 to 64. So now we're better than Apple, which is like, yes, awesome. Satisfaction scores are high. But what I really care is this. This is the one thing that I want to move the needle on. before climate drift, I didn't have an overview. I had no access to the expert. I didn't have a network. I didn't have really expertise. I had very few opportunities. It was like these empty networking calls. And then afterwards, I have a pipeline of opportunities in my niche. And this is literally what I check in with people. How many calls you have scheduled with leaders in that space this week, next week, the following week? And they're like, oh, 4 here, 3 there. These reached out to me. They want to talk more. And this is what we're trying to do, is like get you that pipeline of people who are like, this is cool what you shared here. This is cool what you identified as a problem. So we want to talk more. All right. That's all I have. We can go into Q&A. I don't know, Valerie, if you
I've been collecting, yeah, I've been collecting questions, so I can read. There's some themes, so I'm going to try not to repeat a lot of them. I'm going to try to kind of bunch them together. But there was a question. People seem to be concerned about choosing a niche. They say it's also exciting. How do you balance finding a niche versus finding a job? Somebody else asked, what if you find a niche and you're very interested in it, but you can't or you don't know enough to propose a solution to any of their problems? Should you just move to another niche, or what do you do with that?
Oh, it's a super good question. Whoever asked that, love that. It's like, hey, don't mess up at the beginning, because it's like, oh my God, that gets me down a rabbit hole and then to record, right? And then can I recover from that? So, okay. I would, first of all, don't stress out about that. If you spend, say, 5 hours looking into a niche, I would time box this. I wouldn't spend 3 weeks on something. You need to think execution. So, okay, I spent 5 hours looking into a niche. This is me listening to maybe 2 or 3 podcasts, right? Just on that specific topic. And it's like, oh, very interesting. Then I would listen to, read a few chapters of a book, maybe then Google a little bit around there. And then I have like, okay, here is something after 5 hours that I have about this niche. If that's like something where like, oh my God, it's kind of boring, toss it. That's just a bit of learning exercise. Go to the next one. But if you at the same time be like, man, this is so interesting. I can't believe it's Friday night and I'm reading a policy document from the UK about the circular economy and the policies that they propose that will going to kick in 3 months. And I'm up that late and I've never read the policy document before, but I know what this will do to this subsector of the climate economy, the recycling and everything. And I know what this will probably do to these type of companies in here that maybe have a software platform on it. Oh my God, if you feel that and you're like, this is so exciting, what I previously thought was boring, that's a really good positive sign for you to dig in deeper. So that's usually what I'm looking for, is these gut feelings, these reactions like, man, this is exciting. So that's answer number 1. It's like, don't stress if you go down a rabbit hole and you're like, maybe not, then drop it. This is just, you need to filter out. It's much worse if you like get in a job and then be like, okay, now I found a job, and you're like, oh my God, I hate this. Do your work first. It takes a lot of work to get to a place where you get a job offer. So be okay with exploring. That's exactly why they build the map. And then the other thing is like, what if I find something I'm really excited about, but I just don't have anything to go with? 2 ways. If you just too early and everyone's in the lab and everyone's a scientist and everyone is like, well, these are chemists that work on the composition of a new type of battery for EVs, and that's where you want to be. Maybe they need, and your skills are in communications and PR, maybe they need one person like that, right? That's ultra competitive now. This is very low chance they're going to need you, right? So then it's like, you're just too early. Wait on that. Give it a year or 2 and then come back to that and look at like what's adjacent to that I can maybe be in, and then later jump back into that, right? Then be strategic that way. And then there's some where it's like, okay, very exciting. I think my skills could match. Then that's when you want to dive in deeper and be like, man, they actually have a marketing challenge. They actually have a product challenge. They need more project managers because they're growing too fast. Look for that. I hope that was helpful. I don't know if that made sense to you, what I just said, Valerie, but that was my best answer to that, all of it together from many people.
Very good answers. Thank you so much. Here's another theme we're getting. A lot of people want to know, if they do come up with a solution to a problem or some piece of value that they can add to a niche, where can they publish it so that it gets seen? How can they kind of put it on a platform that people will notice?
Okay. we obviously cheat there with our members because we have thousands of people on our email list that are, investors and leaders in the climate space, and they read what we publish. So our members publish on Climate Drift, and then it's like, oh my God, this is exactly the challenge that our portfolio companies have. Like, I'll forward that, and we see that in our analysis that people forwarded, and then it gets opened by, what one person opens it 150 times, they forwarded that email to a few companies who then disseminated it amongst their team. So, but you need to think bigger than that. Obviously, if you have something that helps tremendously, but you need to think about, okay, here's me, here's my profile, I am on LinkedIn. And we do that in the program a ton. It's like, how can I produce short form content to start sharing this, right? Lots of people who say, hey, I'm going to embark on this new journey. I'm going to work in climate somewhere. I don't know where this is yet. That's good. You could do that. But you should follow up that with like, hey, I'm focusing on the residential solar space, especially around battery and adoption and virtual power plants, how they can work together. Here's how I think about this right now. A, B, C. And that's a post that in the beginning, your audience might be like whoever your connections are, and they might not be in the right space. But I can start putting that stuff out there so people actually know, oh, this is my network, people that I know, this is where you want to go. So now if I see anything, I was like, hey, Emma, hey, Johnny, there's something really cool. Have you heard of this company? And they tag you on it, they do that. We all help each other out. So that's one way of doing it. The other way is like, you can publish that on your own post and then link back to it. And now you need to do the hard work. You can't just like post something, put it out in the world and say, okay, great, everyone should just find it. You can't build it and hope they come. You got to build it and make sure they come. So how do you do that? It's like, okay, you've done your research, the companies operate in that space. My example, there's space power company, there's Sunrun, there's Tesla, there's many others that do residential solar and have that similar problem. You write your piece, you go, okay, who are the people who have hiring influence at that company in the department that I would want to fit in? And then you go like, hey, this is what everyone does, which you should do. You should do one better. Is like, hey, can we talk about? And they have even job postings up. Say, hey, can we have an informal network call, right? And most of those go like, hey, I'm so passionate about climate. Like, okay, I don't know how to hire, but you can be like, hey, I'm Marco. I'm not going to waste your time. Here's my thinking about the challenges you have right now, VPPs, battery adoption. Here's how I think about it. I wrote more here, or just here, a link with my deep dive. Take a look. If you think this is valuable, happy to jump on a call, talk more. Completely different way. Now I know somebody that speaks my language, understands what I'm currently have in front of me, and we can have a discussion that is much deeper around something that keeps me up at night, which I love to talk more about because I would love to get rid of this problem. And so that's the way of doing it. You do that outreach and you ping people on it, just how you would do it when you're like, hey, I really want to apply for that job. Can I learn more? But it's like, hey, this is me. I want something for you versus, hey, this is me. I think I have something of value to give to you, and maybe you can give a little back. Much different conversations. That if I had to start from scratch, this is where I would go. I would do the whole finding the solutions, writing about it, and then pinging people individually and being like, hey, is this of value to you? And then you see how many come back. And you'd be surprised how many people are like, man, somebody's actually gone the extra mile. I want to talk more.
Great. There are a couple of questions that actually I totally get from where I'm coming from about what if you have like you're a senior professional who brings very generalist skills like strategic partnerships, general management. I mean, I have HR, talent acquisition. Like, is it very important to choose a niche at that point? Because it's more about like, I want to get into the climate space. Or, how do you kind of bring that kind of more general experience that really isn't climate specific, but to a company and make it valuable for them?
Yeah, I heard you. Okay, so we have a lot of people in the program who say like, hey, I'm a generalist. Do I need to become a specialist or can I stay a generalist? And to me, the answer is you look at what you've done in the past, what are you really good at? And you can stay a generalist, but you need to look for the right company within that niche that's at the right stage, right? And that's like, if you think about back to examples, Jonathan, he was a generalist. It's like, I've done everything but a project management, budget oversight, managing the team, very generalist style. And he's like, yeah, but I was focused on a specific industry that I'm passionate about. For him, it was transportation within the aviation industry. And then he thought like, okay, this alternative fuel stuff, that's really interesting. And so that's what he dug in and be like, here's how I'm looking at this, and just like all the different problems and challenges that they have. And so I think that is where you need to think, like, pick the niche and then see like, can I use my generalist skills, stuff that I've done before, and apply it there? And you come across like, of course, yeah, there's things that need to be moved forward. And now my son is walking in because he just woke up and we're on a recorded call. Hi, you want to be on a recorded call? Everyone's going to see you right now. So I hope that answers your question. And I'm a bit distracted right now, but this is what happens when you do Zoom calls early in the morning. Hey, I need to stop. I need to keep working a little bit. Everyone can see me. I can't stop because people have very important questions. But we also have breakout rooms, so maybe you can use this as a
this would be a good
moment to
time
go
to
into breakout
transition.
rooms, and I get some breakfast going.
Great. So the next thing we're going to do is just randomly assign people to breakout rooms. I believe they'll last about 15 minutes. And here's the prompt. Just introduce yourself to the group. Tell us a little bit about like the subsector you're most curious about, what your climate career journey has been so far, what you've done. Has anything worked well? Have you gotten traction anywhere that might be valuable? And anything that you've learned from this session that you would want to incorporate.
Right, yeah.
I think Nicolette will be putting everybody in their rooms in a second.
I think I just threw out the.
Yeah, I need one moment. I'm going
just
to
confirm.
assign the breakout rooms in a minute. Okay, they are all open.
Yeah, 94541 is correct.
People can start joining their breakout rooms.
Everyone's coming back. So are people still in the breakout rooms?
They're coming in.
They are starting to come back. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Valerie and I were just chatting about, this. This is when you volunteer and you organize. Everyone's in breakout rooms, and then you're like, "Hey, Marco, while I have you here, let me ask you all my questions." This is why you do this. This is why you want to volunteer at an event, and then you just hang out in the back room with like the organizers and ask all your questions. So always think about that. Hey, I think working with climate, I love what the team is doing. So if you volunteer, you get all these extra moments where you can ask your questions. So think about that. Also, I don't know if everyone can see it. We put the feedback form up, so you can scan that, and would love if we can spend right after a few moments to give some feedback. What do you like? What do you not like? What can we improve? I get that feedback too, but it helps them if and then maybe I get invited back, maybe not. Maybe they don't share the feedback with me, then I know it was not good. Two more questions that before we wrap up that I saw in the chat while I had a moment to scroll through was like, one was like, hey, Marco, isn't all you said just doing a bunch of free work and then hoping that it works out? And I think Valerie and I just had that conversation. It's like, hey, you're doing this just for one company? And then what if they, she didn't ask that, but other people in chat, it's like, what if they just take that and then implement all your smarts, get like, you're not thinking about doing this for one company. You're thinking about there is multiple companies that have a similar challenge in that specific subsector, and you're addressing that for them, how to move forward. Is that free work you're doing? I think it's education that you need to do to break into something. You just need to understand that, and you need to go and do that. These few extra steps is what makes you stand out. And to me, this stuff actually moves the needle forward, and it's accumulative and it builds on top of it. You learn something, try, here's what I'm gonna do. You try again. It's much different than, okay, here's my resume. It's customized for this one job at this one company with a cover letter. Now the next one, new customized cover letter, resume for this job and do this, like send all these out. Is that free work? I don't know. I hate doing that work. I much like to be at the type, it's necessary for some of the times, but I like to have at least a good portion of it, knowing what's really going on and understanding what I get myself into, and understand, is this the company that I think will actually move something and has the right solution to the challenge? And if I think yes, then that's something I really want to join. Without doing that research, I'll just go off a job description that a recruiter most likely wrote after talking to somebody in the hiring manager for 10-15 minutes. I'm like, this sounds pretty cool. And obviously you can do more research, but I really want to know what that sector is. So is it free work? I don't think so. It's for you to ensure that you go into the right place with the right attitude, with the right mindset, and you know this is going to be a place where you can be successful. So to me, this is like a worthwhile investment. The other question we had is like, hey, Marco, there's all these other programs out there. How is what you're doing different? Or I've already done one. Does this even make sense? My answer to that is we have plenty of people in the program who went through other programs out there. You know who they are. I'm not going to mention them, all of them, but plenty of programs out there. They came to us and I asked them straight out. It's like, okay, you went through a program before learning about climate and issues and solutions. Is what we've done helpful, or is this different? And here's what our members tell us, like, hell yeah, this is so much different. Everyone else is focusing on education. And then like a university. And then it's like, just like university, here's all the knowledge you have about solutions, the change, the impact climate has on the environment. And now you need to build that bridge to a job. I didn't build the program like that. I didn't build a university or an online course that gives you education. I built a program from what are the specific problems companies have today, and then I build it backwards from that to the education part, everything you need to get there. So I build it backwards, and I think that is completely different. It's like focused on this real world learning in a structured education environment. That's really what we care about, from the back, from the jobs, from the challenges, backwards. So you can, and there's accountability and things you have to get done in the program. That's why it's called an accelerator, and that's why we're different. So yeah, plenty of people come from it and they all tell us, hey, it's super value, this helped us. And some of the people who were in the examples who have jobs, they went through programs before, came to us, and then got the job. So yeah, different way of building it. And yeah, I've been doing this for like 15 years, building education and career transition programs. So I always tell people, if I don't get the feedback this is working, I'm going to just shut it down tomorrow. I can do something else with my time. But so far, everyone tells us it's working. The feedback we're getting is, it's like, this is hugely helpful to us transitioning into climate. So we keep going. That's the only thing I wanted to add, because these are two big questions I think I had. Hopefully that was helpful, a little addition here. Mallory, it's back to you.
Okay, I just want to make sure all the questions were answered. I would just say thank you so much, Marco and Climate Drift, for being with us today at 6 a.m. no less in New Zealand. So we're very appreciative, and this was incredibly valuable to all of us. As Marco said, please feel free to, or please fill out the survey just following that QR code. That's how we know what you want. We listen and we know what you want for other events. I'd also say thank you to Nicolette for doing all the tech side, and to everybody. The engagement was phenomenal. I loved everything in the chat. So I appreciate you all being here. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.